Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing the Imprisoned Words of Fear by the band Verbal Delirium.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So for some unexplainable reason today I decided to do mostly a full face makeup. Hope you like it. I don't really do this, but I haven't come on this show without makeup in quite a while, so I guess that's a good thing, but none of you probably care about this. Let's get right into my favorite bits from this album.
Words are small boats sailing to the ocean.
So these are Verbal Delirium. Now Verbal Delirium have formed in Greek in sort of 1999, but they didn't really materialize their lineup until 2005, and in 2007 they came up with an album demo called The Imprisoned Words of Fear, but because it was not finalized they did not want to release it yet, and they instead waited for a whole 9 years before releasing this album. And the funny thing is, this one comes after 2 releases, so this was their first demo album that they made, but it was released as their 3rd studio album. And I appreciate it a lot because they might have released this album in 2007 and it might have sounded awful, but instead they opted for waiting and actually releasing it when it sounded good and well polished. Now they are the second Greek band we are getting on here. The first one was Aphrodite's Child with their masterful album of 666. Now unlike that album, this one doesn't really feature a whole lot influences from Greek culture and mythology, much like 666 had. This one sounds more mainstream like the Western prog we're used to. And the categorization and subdivision of this album basically goes something like this. So it has 4 medium to, short length songs starting it off, and then it ends off with 3 longer songs, each one surpassing at least 11 minutes. And unlike what I usually like longer songs, but unlike that, I actually like the shorter ones on here better. And that is mostly understandable because there is this curse of longer songs in which you have to keep them engaging for the entire duration of them, and it's really hard to make a long song memorable, and I think they flawed in here mostly. So this album opens up with a lovely track that features flute, a choir, and some piano playing, and it's all really lovely, and then it builds up towards the end, and then it crescendos into the second track, which is also my favorite, called Close to You, a very hard rock song which sounds amazing as itself and is kind of hindering towards soft metal. And although this album and this band are categorized as crossover prog, I would have to say that if I had to categorize it more specifically, I would say that this would be some soft metal fusion album. It really does seem to take most inspiration from metal music, but it doesn't go all the way really far with the hard and heaviness of it, and still it really stays true to incorporating other different genres and ideas. One thing that I noticed a lot was the incorporation of some jazz movements inside of here, and as well taking some stark inspirations from 60s and 70s symphonic prog. But besides those influences, this album actually surprised me with a couple of more ideas put into other songs. So for example, you have the disco part in the song The Decayed Reflection, which is really unexpected but very cool. You also have the closing for the track Fear, which ends off with this sort of moonlight sonata, piano solo, which is really lovely, and I love the way that they did it. And inexplainably, I cannot tell you why they did this, but it sounds really odd but really cool at the same time, and I guess that a lot of people wouldn't couldn't connect to it, but the last track called In Memory actually has this really dubstep vibe to it, and it has this really dubstep section inside of it, which is totally unexpected but very, very cool, and I personally liked it, while other people might think that it's a bit cringy or just unrelated. And if all that I just told you sounds really, really odd and unrelated to one another, then you should totally go ahead and check out this album, because it's truly something different from what I've ever heard, and I think that when it comes to the execution, they've done a pretty good job on here, and I'm so happy that they waited all this time in order to release this album in its way better, more polished form. So to be true, when seeing this cover, I thought to myself that I was getting myself into a metal album, and I was surprised to see that it wasn't, because let's face it, a girl with black hair that turns into smoke ravens does sound like something you'd find off of a cover of a metal band. And you know, despite the fact that they do take stark inspirations from metal music, I still think they could have done a better job at doing a cover that serves more justice to the music found on here and the diversity of this album. Because as it is right now, this album cover delivers some prior misconceptions about what's to be found on here, and that's always a shame when it comes to every album. And yeah, we've seen covers like this, we've seen these inspirations as well, we've seen the girl on the Detachment cover, and we've also seen the birds on the Lazarus Bird cover by Burst, so yeah, it's something very, very repetitive, and I think they could have done a lot more in order to be more original and more true to their music. So when it comes to the rating of this album, this one sits at a cozy 8 out of 10. This album is overall great, but not so memorable, not yet. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow, because we're going to be listening to Joy of a Toy by Kevin Ayers. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.